Do you want to be 10 years younger? Well, there are two keys for it. One is to increase butyrate-producing bacteria, which is longevity bacteria, abundant in the gut of Japanese centenarians in Kyotango region. The other key is autophagy, cellular recycling mechanism discovered by Dr. Yoshinori Osumi, a 2016 Nobel Prize winner in physiology or medicine. This Japanese jogging technique will make you 10 years younger. That's something I'm going to talk about today, so stick around. Hi, my name is Sachiaki Takamiya, a 63-year-old biohacker based on Japanese natural health and the author of Live Wiser, Not Smarter. So in the last video, I shared with you Japanese walking technique, which is IWT, interval walking training, developed at Shinshu University, Japan, and how it increases longevity bacteria called butyrate-producing bacteria, which is abundant in the gut of Japanese centenarians in Kyotango region. And exercise such as moderate intensity exercise that leaves you slightly breathless can increase butyrate-producing bacteria. And IWT is a moderate intensity exercise that leaves you slightly breathless. However, I don't personally practice IWT. Well, I do recently, partly because I've been making videos about this, and it is a good exercise. And in fact, I might incorporate it like once a week or something. But usually, I have a better exercise, which is zone 2 jogging, but not just a regular zone 2 jogging. It is a new Japanese jogging technique that I developed. In many ways, I think this is optimal aerobic exercise, and it is better than IWT, partly because it is good for your bones as well. So today, I'd like to share with you this new Japanese jogging technique. So first, I'll share with you why centenarians in Kyotango are 10 years younger in their vascular age, and physical fitness you need to increase your health span, the benefit of zone 2 training, the drawbacks of steady zone 2 jogging, and finally, how I incorporated the Japanese walking technique into my zone 2 jogging regimen. So please watch the video until the end. Those of you who just discovered this video today, this is the Ikigai Diet channel, which is about how to increase health span for people over 50 or 60. I am the author of 4 books, and I usually cover things like diet, exercise, mindset, and anything else that is related to increasing your health span. So if you're over 50 or 60 and interested in health span extension, please subscribe to this channel. Thank you. Now, so longevity bacteria were discovered in the Japanese centenarian's gut in Kyotango region. So Kyotango is in Kyoto Prefecture, and it is a longevity hotspot at the moment because there are 115 centenarians out of 49,517 people. That means 230 centenarians per 100,000 people, and the Japanese national average is 76 centenarians per 100,000 people. So it is 3 times as many as the national average. And compared to the US national average, which is 25, is nearly 9 times more. So Kyotango is incredibly long-living region. And their vascular age is 10 years younger than that of the national average in Japan. By the way, talking about vascular age, I have once been diagnosed that my vascular age was 21 years younger than my age group. Anyway, why their vascular age is 10 years younger? Well, this butyrate-producing bacteria may have something to do with it. Now, it is considered to be longevity bacteria in Japan, and many scientists are researching this bacteria. So the key seems to be increasing this bacteria in your gut. And how to increase butyrate-producing bacteria. According to Dr. Yuji Naito, a researcher of the Kyotango longevity cohort study and the author of 酪酸菌を増やせば健康長寿になれる, which translates to you can increase your health span if you increase butyrate-producing bacteria. So he says there are several ways to increase this bacteria. One is through diet, another is through exercise, and some other lifestyle factors. For the exercise, moderate intensity exercise that leaves you slightly breathless, if you do that 30 minutes to 60 minutes, 3 times a week, it can increase butyrate-producing bacteria. And this moderate intensity exercise that leaves you slightly breathless sounds like zone 2 to me, because when you are in a zone 2 intensity, you can have a conversation, but it is difficult to have a conversation. You'd rather not to talk, but it is still possible. So you are kind of slightly breathless. And if you become completely breathless, then you are in zone 3. So I think this is pretty similar to zone 2 intensity. And IWT has slow walking part and brisk walking part. The brisk walking part corresponds to this intensity, moderate intensity exercise that leaves you slightly breathless. But because you do that only 15 minutes a day, so altogether, this exercise is 30 minutes long, but the brisk walking part is just 15 minutes. So you do 15 minutes of this intensity exercise 4 times a week, meaning 60 minutes a week, which is a little shorter than what they recommend, because they recommend 30 to 60 minutes 3 times a week, meaning 90 to 180 minutes a week. But it's a question of whether you are counting the slow walking part as well. The thing is, there is no direct study comparing IWT and butyrate-producing bacteria. So we don't know for sure, but there are studies comparing IWT and steady zone 2 level walking, and usually it is equivalent, or IWT is slightly better. So that means doing 120 minutes a week, because when you do 30 minutes of IWT 4 times a week, meaning 120 minutes a week, so is equivalent to doing 120 minutes of zone 2 walking. So that means it is good to increase butyrate-producing bacteria. But this new Japanese jogging technique is even better, because we do it 135 to 150 minutes a week, which is closer to this 90 to 180 minutes a week like a recommendation. It's somewhere in between. So you can make sure that you're increasing butyrate producing bacteria if you practice Japanese jogging technique. Well, to be 10 years younger, butyrate producing bacteria is important, but there are other factors too. So let's look at physical fitness you need to increase your health span. To increase your health span, you need to think of two things. One is disease prevention, and the other is injury prevention. Because if you get injured through falling or something, then you might become bedridden and then you won't be able to move around and exercise, which can lead to developing other diseases. So eventually you'll have a problem. Therefore, you want to avoid injuries in old age. So for disease prevention, aerobic exercise is considered to be good. And then there are two types: low intensity exercise and high intensity exercise. When you think about aerobic exercise, you also want to think about gut health, how different type of exercise affect your gut health, and autophagy, how it affects activation of autophagy. So butyrate producing bacteria is part of the gut health, and moderate intensity exercise that leaves you slightly breathy is supposed to be good. So it is more like a low intensity aerobic exercise. And extremely strenuous exercise may decrease butyrate producing bacteria. So a study on gut microbiota conducted by Juntendo University on Japanese ultramarathon runners found that extremely strenuous exercise may decrease butyrate producing bacteria in the gut and potentially affect immune function. And I also found another study called Interplay Between Exercise and Gut Microbiome in the Context of Human Health and Performance. So according to this study, moderate exercise, which is like a below 70% VO2 max, meaning somewhere around zone 1 to zone 2, this type of exercise has a largely positive effect on the health of an average person. It is shown to reduce inflammation, improve body composition, and lead to beneficial changes in the gut microbiome. This includes increasing the diversity of gut bacteria and the production of important microbial byproducts like short-chain fatty acids. Intense exercise over 70% VO2 max, which is about zone 4 and zone 5. Conversely, very intense or long duration exercise can be detrimental. It can increase the permeability of the gut lining and reduce the thickness of the gut mucus, potentially allowing pathogens to enter the bloodstream and leading to increased inflammation. This is a major reason why many ultra-endurance athletes experience gastrointestinal issues. However, it is a little different for elite athletes. So elite athletes and the gut microbiome. Interestingly, the review notes that elite athletes seem to have a more resilient gut. Their gut microbiota shows a higher level of diversity and a shift towards bacterial species that are highly efficient at metabolizing carbohydrates and fibers. This in turn allows them to produce more key metabolites like short-chain fatty acid, which are beneficial for their health and performance. So it is interesting. So for regular people, maybe intense exercise can be dangerous, but that is different for the elite athletes. And a two-way street. The article also highlights a bidirectional relationship between the gut and exercise. Rodent studies have shown that while exercise clearly impacts the composition of the gut microbiota, the microbiome itself may also influence an athlete's performance. For example, some bacteria can help produce energy from metabolites like lactic acid, which can improve endurance capacity. It sounds like elite athletes have different kind of gut microbiota. Key takeaway. The main conclusion is that to get the most benefit, especially for gut health, you need to find the right balance. While both moderate and intense exercise have their place, the ideal approach for an average person is to control the intensity to avoid negative side effects. The review suggests that future studies should focus on this balance, especially while also taking into account crucial factors like diet, training load, and individual differences to better understand and optimize an athlete health and performance. Right. Okay. So let's look at this intensity one more time. We'll look at this using this heart rate zones. So I often talk about, zone 1, zone 2, zone 4, zone 5. So zone 1 and zone 2 seem to be the moderate intensity exercise that this research was talking about. And then zone 4 and zone 5 are the intense exercise. And zone 3 is somewhere in between. So the beginning part of the zone 3 is part of the moderate intensity exercise, but the latter part of the zone 3 is intense exercise. And then if you look at the type of exercise, for example, IWT is between zone 1 and zone 2, but HIIT is zone 4 and zone 5. And regular walking, such as 10,000 steps walking, is zone 1, and jogging is zone 2. I mean, depending on your speed, of course. So the safe range is doing, regular walking, jogging, or IWT, you are safe. And the higher intensity, it's not dangerous, but I think you need to think of the duration and frequency. And also it changes depending on the type of HIIT. For example, Tabata is only 4 minutes long, while Norwegian 4x4 is 30 minutes long. So it is very different in duration. So for Norwegian 4x4, I think I would personally limit to doing only once a week, not every day or not, 3 times a week. But for Tabata, like if you're doing, body weight strength Tabata type of thing, maybe you can do it like 3 times a week. But I think for high intensity aerobic exercise with a longer duration, you need to be careful. Okay, so what about autophagy then? This cellular recycling mechanism. Autophagy is very important. It can basically regenerate your cells. It really helps slowing down aging process. So if you want to live longer, if you want to increase your health span, you definitely want to activate autophagy. And usually, autophagy is activated by fasting, such as intermittent fasting. However, to activate autophagy for longevity purposes, it is often considered that you need to practice prolonged fasting, which is over 24 hours of fasting. So usually, if you practice intermittent fasting, like 16 hours fasting, you can activate autophagy for other functions, but for longevity purposes, it is not sufficient. You need longer fasting, over 24 hours, but more like, 48 hours or 72 hours fast, which is quite difficult. In fact, you cannot practice 72 hours fast on a regular basis. You can probably do it once a year or once every quarter, but it's kind of dangerous to do it so frequently. So isn't there another way? Isn't there an exercise that can activate autophagy for longevity? Well, apparently there is Dr. Tommy Wood, who is Associate Professor of Pediatrics and Neuroscience at University of Washington, says a 60-minute bout of low-level intensity aerobic exercise, approximately 50 to 60% VO2 max, which is like zone 1 and zone 2 level, upregulates autophagy as much as 72-hour fast in humans. So again, it is a low intensity aerobic exercise. For details, please watch this video. The actual title is "The Only Thing That Increases Autophagy More Than Fasting," Dr. Tommy Wood. Okay, so what about injury prevention? What do you need to prevent injury? You need muscle strength, you need bone strength, you need balance, and you need flexibility and mobility. For your muscle strength, you need strength training, and strength training is good for the bones too. And for the bones, weight-bearing exercise such as walking, jogging, playing tennis, badminton, basketball, those are good. And for the balance, Tai Chi, Qigong type of exercise, and flexibility and mobility, stretching, yoga, and Pilates. So what about walking and jogging? Walking and jogging are low intensity aerobic exercise, and it is a weight-bearing exercise. And it can be a strength training a little bit, especially jogging. If you jog, it can apply a lot of stress on your legs. In fact, I sometimes have a muscle ache after jogging, so I can tell it is definitely working on your muscles. The benefit of zone 2 training. The zone 2 training is very popular. It is often recommended by many experts. It is one of the most important exercise to increase your health span. Mitochondrial health. Zone 2 enhances mitochondrial function and density, which supports cell energy and reduces the metabolic dysfunction, a key factor in healthy aging and prevention of chronic disease. Metabolic flexibility. Training at this intensity, typically 60 to 70% of max heart rate, improves the body's ability to burn fat for fuel and switch efficiently between fuel sources. Metabolic flexibility is linked with insulin sensitivity, stable energy, and lower risk of diabetes. Cardiovascular fitness. Zone 2 exercise strengthens the heart, increases stroke volume, and improves blood vessel health, leading to reduced blood pressure, healthier cholesterol, and lower risk of cardiovascular disease. Why is it better than Zone 1? Zone 2 is intense enough to stress the cardiovascular and the metabolic systems, producing changes, more mitochondria, better fat oxidation, improved VO2 max, not typically achieved at Zone 1. And also, if you jog, it has a higher impact on the bones when you land as a weight-bearing exercise. Okay, so the drawbacks of steady Zone 2 jogging. It is harder than walking. Therefore, it is not as sustainable and doable than walking, and not suitable for meditation. I find it so much easier to meditate while I'm walking than while I'm jogging. Also, it can damage your knees, and it has a higher injury risk in many other areas too. So, in order to overcome the drawbacks of steady Zone 2 jogging, I incorporated the Japanese walking technique into my Zone 2 jogging regimen, and I call it IJT, interval jogging training. So, I usually run 5 kilometers round the trip, but on the way to get there, I do steady jog, but on the way back, I practice walk-jog interval. Initially, because on the way to get there, it is slightly downhill, but on the way back, it's slightly uphill. So when I come back, it was slightly higher intensity. I often went into zone 3. So in order to maintain the zone 2 intensity, I had to slow down. So I sometimes stopped and I kind of changed to walking. In that way, I could maintain zone 2 intensity. So this walk jog interval naturally happened in this condition, but it works out very well. So now I deliberately do that because walk jog interval is more beneficial in many ways. For example, during the walking, I get to practice meditation. I get to practice Shinyon Kansha meditation. I find dividing the session into half, steady jog part and a walk jog interval is very good because after jogging for 2.5 kilometers, you kind of get tired and also you kind of get bored mentally a little bit. So the latter part gives me kind of refreshed feeling, like a sort of new kind of exercise. So mentally, it kind of sort of stimulate you. So it is easier for me to finish the latter part. So in many ways, it is more doable than doing 5 kilometer steady zone 2 jogging. And I do this 45 minutes. So 20 minutes steady jog and 25 minutes walk jog interval. And I do it 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That means I get to have a rest day in between, which is very important so that you don't give too much stress on your knees and other part. I think it is very important to have a rest days between your jogging sessions. Also, I do some backward jogging and walking for about 100 to 200 meters. This helps your knee problem too. It is supposed to, it is supposed to ease the stress on your knees because you're kind of working on different kind of muscles. So in order to increase butyrate-producing bacteria, you can do moderate intensity exercise that leaves you slightly breathless for 30 minutes to 60 minutes, 3 times a week, meaning 90 minutes to 180 minutes a week. So in my case, I do 135 minutes a week of this exercise. So within this recommendation, but actually I do 45 minutes, 60 minutes, and 45 minutes. So on Monday, I do it 45 minutes, but on Wednesday, I do it for 60 minutes, and on Friday, I do it for 45 minutes. So altogether, 150 minutes a week. This is way longer than regular IWT practice. The reason why I am including this 60 minutes exercise is because of this. 60 minutes bout of low-level intensity aerobic exercise can upregulate autophagy as much as 72-hour fast in humans. So the idea is variation. Many people stick to one particular type of exercise, whether it is IWT or zone 2 jogging, but you can make part of your steady exercise to an interval exercise, or you can divide them into different sessions. For example, on Monday, you do the steady zone 2 jog, but on Wednesday, you do the walk jog interval, and on Friday, you do the steady jogging and so on. Okay, so let's sum up. First, steady zone 2 jogging, and then walk jog interval. Basically, the first half of the exercise is steady zone 2 jogging, and the second part is walk jog interval. For the walk jog interval, around 3 minutes each, but you don't need to measure it precisely. I don't usually measure it. I usually walk to a certain spot. For example, walk to that cornfield, then I switch to jogging. Then I jog until the next cornfield and so on. So, whatever the way you feel comfortable, you can use a timer if you like too. And then you can do it in zone 1 and zone 2 level. So the walking is a zone 1 level and jogging is zone 2 level. So zone 1 and zone 2 interval. Then include backward jogging and walking, maybe, somewhere around 100 to 200 meters altogether. And then you do that 3 times a week. For example, 45 minutes on Monday, 60 minutes on Wednesday, and 45 minutes on Friday. Include one session with 60 minutes. And then make sure to have rest days in between. And that is why it's good to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so that you can rest on Tuesday and Thursdays. But again, this is what I do. You can adjust it a little based on your fitness level. You can do it longer or you can do it shorter. And generally speaking, this is for people who are relatively fit. If you find this kind of exercise difficult, then please practice IWT. I do recommend IWT to many people who are over 60. It is much easier than doing this. And the most important thing is doability. You don't want to push yourself too hard. But if you feel this is manageable, then this is for you. With this, you can increase butyrate-producing bacteria and activate autophagy for longevity at the same time. In other words, you can increase your health span tremendously. What about other exercise such as strength training, balance, flexibility, and mobility, and high-intensity aerobic exercise, which are all important to increase your health span? Well, you can do them separately. Like in my case, I do them too. Like on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, I do some strength training and balance, flexibility and mobility training too. And the strength training is, in my case, is high intensity interval training, like Tabata style. So I do all of them, but you don't have to because you're busy. You don't have time to do all those training. But as long as you're doing this Japanese jogging technique, you're covering the most important part. In fact, this is the core of my exercise regimen. Even though I do other exercises, this jogging is a central. This is the most important part of my exercise. And I feel once I've done that, I am satisfied. I feel I have done the exercise of the week. This is so powerful. So other exercises are more kind of additional thing, and this is the central focus. So for many people, I recommend the Japanese jogging technique. But if you want to do other exercises, then read chapter 5, the ideal exercise to increase health span in Live Wiser, Not Smarter. So I introduce all those exercises, what you can do for strength training, what you can do for, balance training and flexibility training and so on. And chapter 9, my 80% optimal biohacking routine, I introduce what exercises I personally do. If you want to get the full picture of what I do, please read chapter 9. Okay, thank you for watching. Again, my name is Hachiaki Takamiya, the author of Live Wiser, Not Smarter. If you like this video, please give me your thumb up and subscribe to my channel. And please leave your comment. How do you exercise? Do you practice IWT or do you practice like zone 2 jogging like me? Or do you do other higher intensity activities or strength training, stretching? Please share your exercise regimen in the comment below. Thank you. So I said jogging is good for the bone health because it is a good weight-bearing exercise. Now, when you talk about bone health, you also want to eat natto because natto can support your exercise tremendously. For details, you can watch this video.